What's up, guys? Today we're going to figure out the difference once and for all between Add9, Sus2, and Major 7/9, or what's also sometimes called Major 9. Okay, so we want to start with the C major scale in terms of its notes. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C if you want to go to the octave. And then in terms of its numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As you know, everything in music theory relates to or is derived from the major scale. So if we have a set of 7 notes from the major scale, we're just going to label them as such. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nothing is altered, nothing is flat or sharp. So if we extract the first note from the scale, we have a C. And then we extract the third note of the scale, we have E. And we extract the fifth note of the scale, we're going to have G. And that's what we call a C chord, or a C triad, or just simply, if we're looking at a chord chart or a lead sheet, you probably just see the letter C there. So that's a C chord or a C triad. Now, we could also look at this as its numbers 1, 3, and 5. When we go into the land of sus chords, usually sus2 or sus4, that is the third degree of the chord moving up or down 1 scale degree. Alright, so a sus4 would be the E moving up 1 scale degree to F, right? There's our sus4. So a sus4, let's keep it in the same key here, C sus4, is C, F, and G, right? And if we look at it from a numbers perspective, we have 1, 4, and 5. Not to be confused with a 1, 4, 5 chord progression, right? That's something else. That's a chord progression, right? We're just talking about notes from a scale. So there's a sus4. Now, let's say we want to make a sus2, right? So remember, a sus chord is the triad with a third of the chord moving up or down 1 scale degree. So if we have a C sus4, the third is going to move up to F. It's going to move up to the 4th note in the scale. If we have a sus2, it's going to move down. So we take our C, E, G, and the E is going to go down to the 2nd note in the scale, so that would be a D. So C sus2 would be C, D, and G. And if we look at it in a numbers-based system, 1, 2, and 5. Okay, so there's a sus2 chord. Get rid of all that. So this should really be in this order, in my opinion. Sus2, Add9, and Major 7/9. The reason I say that is because Sus2 is a 3-note chord. Add9 is a 4-note chord. And Major 7/9, or Major 9, is a 5-note chord. So that simplifies these chord terms eventually. Once you've spent enough time with them, you'll memorize all this stuff. Alright, so let's go, keeping in mind our C major scale, let's go figure out what an Add9 chord is, right? Because we just figured out what a sus2 chord is. It's a triad with the third lowered 1 scale degree. So D, C becomes C sus2 when we do that. So we'll leave this guy up here, which is a regular C chord. 1, 3, and 5, C, E, G. Sus2, C, D, and G. Alright, now let's go start with another C chord, triad, but this time instead of moving down to the 2nd note in the scale, we are going to add the 2nd note in the scale into the the already existing 3-note chord, which is C, E, G. Or again, if we look at the simple numbers-based system of a major scale, it's the first note of the scale, the third note of the scale, and the fifth note of the scale. So if you're a piano player, this is a little bit easier than if you're a guitar player. So again, here's our C chord, but we're going to turn it into an Add9. I like to put the Add9 in parentheses. Not everybody does that, but I like to do that. So it separates the fact that it's a chord and then there's something else going on, which is adding a 9. So I'll kind of jump to conclusions here, and just say that's an Add9 chord. We added D, right, which is the second note in the scale. We added D to an already existing C triad. So you can see why we're saying that an Add9 chord is a 4-note chord, whereas a Sus2 is a 3-note chord. All right, so let's go a little deeper here because we still haven't figured out why this is called an Add9 when we just put in the second note of the scale. Right? So to figure this out, we really have to go into the second octave of the scale. Right? This is 1 octave of a C major scale. If we were ascending in pitch from C all the way up to B, that would be 1 octave. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then we'd have an octave C. We could call that 1, but for this exercise we're going to call that 8, right? Because we're looking at this sequence here as continuing on up in pitch. So if we kept going, what's the second note in the scale? Well, it's always going to be D in this case because we're in the key of C, and that would be a 9. That's where your 9 comes from in the phrase C Add9. So hopefully that clarifies the difference between a C Add9 chord and a C Sus2. Now the fact that we're calling it an Add9 here and a Sus2 here is just semantics. It's just arbitrary music theory stuff. It's the same pitch. It does, to add a D into a C chord, it doesn't necessarily have to be from the upper second octave to be an official Add9. You can mix, like if you go to a piano and you just played the 3 adjacent white keys, C, D, and E, if you just play those all together and then you played a G up above it, that's still an Add9 in my opinion. The D doesn't have to come from the upper octave, but we think of it that way when we define the name of the chord. So let's move on to the C major 7 9 chord. So if you know what a major 7 chord is, then this will be simple. If you don't, then we'll take a little bit more time to go through it. So I'm going to pull these upper register second octave notes out of the picture again to hopefully keep this simple. So we said a major 7/9 is a 5-note chord. Alright, so let's figure out what's going on there. Because we've figured out C Sus2 is a 3-note chord, C Add9 is just a C chord with a 9 added, and a 9 is a fancy word for 2. Two being the second note in the scale, 9 being an octave higher than the 2. So C major 7, again, we're going to start with a C triad, 1, 3, 5, and we're going to add the 7th note in the scale, which is B natural. So now, if I think letters, I'm still dealing with a C triad, C, E, G, but now I'm adding the 7th note of the scale, which is B. So there's a C major 7 chord, and the same way that we figured out the Add9 definition, we can do a C major 7/9 by simply adding a D to it, right? Because again, D is the second note in the scale, but if we go into the upper octave, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever you want, however far you want to go, we only need to go up to 9. We would have C and D. So C major 7/9 is just a C major 7 chord, which is a 4-note chord, with a D added to it. So there's your 5-note chord. So these are 3 major chords that all have a D note in them. And, these chord names at first, first glance or the first few times you encounter them can be rather confusing, but after a while you'll kind of recognize what's what. And I think the simple way to think about it is that C sus2 is a 3-note chord, C Add9 is a 4-note chord, and C major 7/9 is a 5-note chord. And remember, this chord can also be called C major 9. That means the same thing. If it doesn't list the 7 and it simply lists the 9, it's assumed the 7 is in there. So there's the explanation of a sus2, an Add9, and a major 7/9. And we just use the key of C because it's simple, but this applies to obviously any key that you're in.